All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the You, Me, and BTC podcast. So glad to have you with us today. I have to say, I guess I just want to say I've been kind of excited lately about the show. I don't really know why. It's just kind of been successful. We've had a few good ones here and there. Our download numbers are up. So I'm real excited for that. Thank you all for being a part of it. I am Daniel Brown, and I'm here with
Timothy Baker.
Are you excited, Tim? Are you pumped up about You, Me, and BTC?
I'm pretty pumped.
Does it get you cranking?
I crank a lot to You, Me, and BTC. I crank a fuck ton to You, Me, and BTC.
All right.
The buttery voices.
Well, we couldn't do it without all you listeners, so thanks for being there. Thanks for following, subscribing, whatever, YouTube, Twitter. It's all because you're there. All of our networks, World Crypto Network, Liberty.me, Liberty Radio Network. There's probably other ones, but thanks so much for having us. Today, we would like to talk about the ultimate price events that may be coming up in Bitcoin. We're going to talk about what might make you filthy rich in Bitcoin. There's, I guess, 4 main things in this CoinDesk article. This is from August 31st, so it's a little bit older, about a month old. We're recording on the 28th, and you should hear this in a day or two. It's written by Charles Bovaird. Charles Bovaird, thanks for writing this. Thanks for giving us something to talk about. And I think one of the biggest things that we'll be getting into is the Lightning Network and SegWit and more scaling stuff. I know this was a huge topic all year, really. I mean, it's still a big topic in the Bitcoin world. But I think we're finally making some progress. SegWit and Lightning are close to becoming real things. And so we're going to be talking about that some. But first one here is institutional approval. And I'm going to turn it over to Tim to explain what that means and why it could move the price. Go for it.
Well, Daniel and audience out there, institutional approval. I mean, as more, like, if someone agrees that Bitcoin is worthwhile, someone decides to, even if they decide to adopt something similar or do something similar, work off of Bitcoin, that still gives some kind of credence to Bitcoin, to the technology, which then year ago, 2 years ago, people said this technology doesn't make sense for payments. This is completely ludicrous. And then when people start doing something similar, you kind of have to question what they were saying before. They're talking specifically about announcement of a Bitcoin trust by SolidX Bitcoin Trust.
Yeah.
And there's the Winklevoss twins are still involved, and there's a new filing by them in their Bitcoin Trust.
Yeah, this is something, it's been a frickin' long time coming. For more than a year, probably. There's been article after article about, they're starting a Bitcoin fund, and someone else is starting a Bitcoin fund, and the Winklevoss applied for approval to get the paperwork so that they could file it in triplicate and get approved by this committee so that they could be approved for a Bitcoin fund. Yes, let's get that price going up because there might be a Bitcoin fund. Facebook loves Bitcoin. It's been going on for ages. And yeah, baby steps, whatever. You know, it might happen, it might not. I think it will. I don't really see any reason why not. But I guess that brings us to a question that we've covered quite a bit before. But it's really just like, do we even care? I mean, we've had that discussion about, I wrote an article called Big Money in Bitcoin or something like that. And we've talked about these funds before. I remember we did an article by Amir Taki, or maybe it was an Amir Taki interview, where he was saying that, like, we actually don't want big mainstream money in Bitcoin because that's not the purpose of Bitcoin. And we've had several fun arguments about that before, but I'll just ask you, Tim, where you stand and where you think we stand as a podcast. Do you want to summarize some of those discussions? What have we argued about? Big money, mainstream. Where do you stand? Does it need big money? Will it be good? What do you think?
My view, no, it wouldn't be good.
It wouldn't be good. Like, so it's not just that it's whatever, but you think it would actually be bad?
Well, yeah, mainstream money and big business money going to Bitcoin is going to lead it to go more in that direction. I'm not one who's going to argue, say, like, Bitcoin wasn't made for that because it's technology. You can do whatever. It goes where money goes.
True.
But if it's big business and all that, and they're putting a bunch of money into Bitcoin, I don't think it's going to go the way that someone who's more concerned about the privacy or the decentralized nature of it is going to like.
And you're saying that that's you. You are someone who is more concerned about the privacy, right? Because I'm not asking about what it means for people in general. I'm asking what you think. Do you think it will be bad? Or, yeah. I mean, if you're a privacy lover, then based on what you just said, you think it'd be bad? Yeah,
it'd be negative. It would be negative. It'd be bad to how I would like to see Bitcoin go. Because Bitcoin, like you can always have alternatives, but it's like this is the one that is the most popular right now. So it's like I kind of want it to go in the way that I want it to go. So yeah, it'd be bad if it gets taken a different way.
Okay. Bad for the world or just bad for Bitcoin? And what I mean by that is, yeah, it could be bad for Bitcoin. Bitcoin could ultimately just become a digital cash. We talked about this some last week, but how, what if the government takes over Bitcoin or corporations take over Bitcoin? And yeah, sure, maybe it'll make Bitcoin useless for what we need it for. It would still exist, but it's not helpful to us. That would be bad for Bitcoin. But I'm wondering, and we also said this last week, well, we could just make another cryptocurrency like Dash or like Monero that's more private and more secure, whatever. Do you think you think the world would still be fine? Do you think the world would still make privacy strides every day and people would be finding ways to be freer? Or do you think that if big money took over Bitcoin, the main cryptocurrency, would that just ruin all the efforts?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because like what could happen isn't necessarily what should happen. Like what you think is if Bitcoin gets taken over, all right, fine, we'll just make another one, or we'll just make one pretty much exactly the same, just run it on our own network. But the fact, the psychological damage that could do, I think, would be enough. That it would fuck with things for a little bit.
I agree. Like that's why I brought up the fact that Bitcoin is the biggest one, and if it falls apart, I don't agree that it would be the end of crypto. I think that we will continue to make privacy strides all the time, but it would be a big setback. I'll agree with that. It would take a lot of time and a lot of emotional recovery to get over if Bitcoin really did, even if it still survived, if it just became owned by the government, not literally owned, but if they just manipulated it and used it to their advantage and took control of a bunch of miners and started watching transactions and linking them to identities. If that stuff happened, even if Bitcoin survived, as a privacy-focused person, it would hurt a lot.
Yeah, it would definitely scare people away. And like you were saying, the emotional damage, and I was just picturing like talk groups for people in Bitcoin. Like, this was just going to solve all the problems. We were going to open up doors with transactions, and then the government came in. It's just about taxes now.
Yeah, well, yeah. But I want to know, what about the price, though? Let's ignore privacy. Let's ignore our, freedom ideals, our magical utopia like we talked about last week. What about the price itself? Because that's really what this article is about. And we're trying to tell the people how they're going to get filthy rich. So do you think that if these trusts came out that were regulated and accepted and agreed and valuable, and they talk about liquidity a lot. They say it's happened in other commodities where these funds make the price go up because it's more liquid. Do you think that institutional approval will drive the price up?
Yeah, I think it would.
Okay.
At least for a little bit. I don't know if it would be like in the end game, if it would keep it up No, it probably would, because as far as the price has always been like the biggest indicator of new people getting involved with it.
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
I think you're exactly right. That has to do with scarcity. I mean, there's only 21 million. So if people use it regularly and more often, then it has to become more valuable. And for that reason, I would argue that the price would go up, especially if the government regulated it and they helped make it, they helped, McDonald's and Starbucks accept it. And if it became faster and if it scaled better, which we're about to get to, so that you could easily and safely use it at Starbucks or wherever. If that happened, and if the government accepted it and supported it, and it became just as widespread as the credit card, I think the price would skyrocket. I really do. And yeah, tons of drawbacks. If the government and corporations took control, there are serious risks there, no doubt. But I think the price would go up. What else can I say?
Yeah, I don't know much beyond that. It's it's like that'd be the one thing. It'd be like, it's going completely to shit, but I'm rich as fuck, so I don't care.
Yeah. I guess the other thing that the only caveat there is that price going up only applies if the 21 million limit stays. If they really took enough control of it that they could increase that limit, like, oh, we need more Bitcoins to support our whole economy, then obviously then that's just money. That's the dollar. And we talked about inflation a couple episodes ago, and it's way worse than you think. So it's the episode was called Inflation, Slave, Save, Retire, and Sob, because it's worse than you think. So that's a good one to listen to. But anyway, that's the only caveat there. And we'll move on now to technical improvements. And I guess the main thing I want to get across here, and something that's awesome, I think, is that scaling is happening. The two main things that are going on are SegWit, Segregated Witness, which we talked about probably almost a year ago. That's kind of a guess. I really don't know. But it's been on the roadmap for a long time. And essentially what it does, I mean, don't quote me too much here, because I'm not trying to be technically correct. But essentially what it does is it splits up some of the transaction data so that you don't need to store all of the data that we are currently storing in every block. Right now, the limit is 1 megabyte, and they say that supports 7 transactions per second. But if you split up the data, if the transactions are smaller because some of the data doesn't go into the block, then that 1 megabyte block can hold more transactions because they're smaller. As far as I know, from what I heard, I believe it's about a 50% decrease in the size of the data that is stored in the blockchain, which means that we could handle twice as many transactions. I'm sure those are just estimates, and my memory could be off. But regardless, it's something like that. It's a helpful step. It doesn't solve everything, but it's, anything when it doubles, that's great, right? I mean, or terrible, depending on what it is. But
very good or very bad.
Yeah. But I think the main thing, though, is that the main point to make is that it has been tested, it has been analyzed and set up and coded, and part of it has been merged already. As of this article, it was still a few weeks off, but as of a few weeks ago, this has been not turned on per se, but it's been put into the code, and it's just about ready to go. It will require an update. It's a soft fork, and the miners will have to update to make it work correctly and to gain the advantages. But it's there. That's it. So what do you think, Tim? Is this a step in the right direction? Are you worried about anything here? Could it ruin Bitcoin?
I think it's probably good, mostly just because I don't understand it enough to say that it's bad. Like, I find, like, the more I understand things and understand what they're specifically trying to get at, the more I'm like, whoa, wait, I don't really agree with at least a little bit of this. But whenever I'm kind of like, oh yeah, no, segregated witness, yeah, it's great. Preliminary code release, yeah, sure. So I don't know, I'm more just interested to see how this even works.
Yeah. Well, that kind of shifts the question to something different, but I think it's still a good question because I'm sure there are listeners right now who also don't know how it works and don't know exactly what it's supposed to do. And so if that's the case, then the question is not, do you think this is good or bad? The question is, do you trust the core developers? Do you trust the people that said, look, we've been testing this for a year or 2 or 3 now. It's been on the test net. Everything is fine. We're about to merge it. Do you trust them? Do you trust the people that are saying that? Do you think that our listeners should trust them?
I don't trust them. I guess I don't know what other kind of choice you have besides just using an altcoin or just jumping off the main wagon here. So,
you mean like Ethereum, like forking it?
Yeah.
Just like refusing to update?
Yeah. What are you going to do? Like, are you going to trust them or not? Well, you want to keep using it? I guess you have to trust them.
Yeah. Well, I would say that if it was that big of a risk, if there were any loopholes that mean that we should not implement SegWit, if that were the case, I think there would be people talking left and right about Bitcoin Classic, about not updating, just like they did with Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. There would be people out there saying, "Hey guys, don't update. We're going to start a different chain." I mean, it actually doesn't even matter because it's a soft fork, so you could still run it without updating on the same chain. You just wouldn't get the benefits. And I think that if it were a big deal, there would be people screaming it on the streets of our Bitcoin, and I haven't really heard anyone. I haven't heard anyone complaining about it or saying not to update. And I really do trust most of the core devs, and it's gone well so far. And I think Bitcoin, that's it. I think there are enough people in Bitcoin that if there was a problem, it would be spotted and argued about to death.
So trust people on the internet. That's what Bitcoin's trying to
get
you to do
anyway. Yeah, that's the moral of the story. Exactly. All right, Tim. Then here's the same question we did with the first point. What about the price? Are people going to get filthy rich if Bitcoin... Let's just assume that it goes well. Let's say that they really are technical improvements, and it really does scale Bitcoin to, let's say, double the capacity. Are we going to get filthy rich?
I don't think Segregated Witness would help jump that up. My main reason for thinking that is that at the bottom of this article, there's a little quote about it not making a difference. But I think it's a little bit too low. Like, this could be also why there isn't a huge uproar in the streets, as you say, of Reddit. But it's a little bit less news or attention grabbing than like the Winklevoss twins putting money into it. So I think it's a little bit more under the radar. It's not something that people like.
It's a small
Segregated
step.
Witness. So it must go up by $300 exactly.
Right. I agree. It's a small step. And people have been saying that forever. They say it's not going to solve the scaling debate, but it's a step in the right direction. It's kind of a stopgap until we can finish up with Lightning and Thunder and whatever else they're working on. So, I agree. It's a small step. But in terms of the price, I actually think long term, it'll make a huge difference because it's just like what I said before. If we can scale Bitcoin better, if it's easier to use every day by everyone, just like a credit card, I'm not saying that we should go for that. I recognize there are risks there, and in some ways it's just not even necessary. I mean, we don't need to use Bitcoin at Starbucks in some ways. But if it really does scale so that everyone can use it every day, and if there really are only 21 million, then I think the price has to go up. There's no other way for it to go because more people need it for more things every day. And so that's what I would say. So I guess we said we would talk about the Lightning Network too. And I guess I will briefly cover a separate article. This is from BitConnect. I don't want to get into it too much because we still have some other points on the first one. But bitconnect.co, the Lightning Network successfully tested by Bitfury. And this one actually just came out yesterday on the 27th. And yeah, the headline, they successfully tested it. They set up 2,500 AWS nodes. That's Amazon Web Services, I believe. It's Amazon. And they set it up to simulate a Lightning network. And they said that they could find a payment route in about half a second with a probability of 80%. And there's a bunch of quotes here. Essentially, they call it a huge success for the Lightning Network. A good, it's good research, good data, and now they can continue developing it and moving forward with it. And yeah, I mean, I guess that's good. If you can set up a payment channel in half a second, I mean, 80% probability seems low. I don't know why they are so excited about that. If I'm going to make a payment, I'm going to want like a 99% probability. But I guess they're just saying if you don't find a route, it just takes a little bit longer, or you just try again or whatever. So whatever, it's 80% at half a second. And I guess that's good, because with the Lightning Network, once you have the channel opened, you can start making payments. You don't have to wait 10 minutes for a block to confirm, or, 20 minutes if it takes longer, or an hour if you have to wait for 6 confirmations. With the Lightning Network, it's the same or a very similar security model, just so it's arguably, again, I don't know all the technical details, but from what I heard, it's arguably just as secure as Bitcoin. It's built the same way, it's decentralized, and you can make payments in half a second instead of 10 minutes. And that, sure, I'm all for that. Like I said, if you can scale Bitcoin and use it more for more stuff every day, I think it will drive the price up. And if it really is just as secure as Bitcoin and just as decentralized, I have nothing against it. Then let's get it in there. But I don't know, Tim, do you agree? Do you think it will be just as secure? Do you think it will help scale? Do you think this was a good simulation? Do you trust these people that are doing this research? What do you think? I know that was a ton of questions, but pick one and answer it.
Okay, I'll try. I'll just throw out an answer, kind of just the whole questioning. Yeah, I think it will help with the price going up mostly just because of the transaction, like knowing it's going to go through in a couple seconds versus being like, all right, when the fuck is my first transaction going to come? It's been an hour. Why the fuck is this doing this? I've freaked out at you a couple times. I've been like, why? What happened, Daniel? What's going on?
Yeah.
But I think it kind of has to make it less secure as far as, because you're adding in a third party at this point for your
okay.
At least you're involving somebody else, which
True.
will kind of always lead to at least, there's just one more thing that can go wrong.
Right. That I actually completely agree with. It's like we talked about this with Ethereum, where it's like it's a Turing complete programming language, which means you can do literally anything on Ethereum that you can do in a program or on a computer. And we talked about how that can make it less secure, because it's more attack vectors, more stuff that you can do, more stuff you have to worry about and try to keep straight and secure. And I agree. Lightning is definitely not going to improve security. It's mathematically or logically or whatever impossible, because it's more. It's more stuff going on, more. It's not less, right? It's not simpler. It's more complex, which means there are more attack vectors, a bigger surface of code to scrutinize and secure or attack. And so in that way, yes, I would say it's probably logically impossible for it to make Bitcoin more secure. Now, you could argue that it's just as secure, which is possible. Maybe it is just that well made, but you don't know that. So you can't be sure. So in that way, I would say, yes, you're right. It's probably not a big deal. It's probably just as secure, but you can't be sure, and there's just more stuff to worry about. I'll give you some slack there. Yeah. Anything else?
Again, let other people do it first, I guess, is my advice on that.
True. Yeah, I listened to I think it was the latest episode of Let's Talk Bitcoin, and I forget who the guest was. I apologize, sir. But yeah, he just kept saying, if you're going to test stuff like this, do it on a side chain or on an altcoin. We don't have to test it in Bitcoin because it's a moving 747 in the air. You can't repair the engine. That was a big point there. And I think that's a fair point. And I think that's kind of what they're doing here. They said it was successfully tested on a simulation. I think it's a start, and we'll see how it goes. So, are you tired of Bitcoin dice and ready for something different? Try LuckyBit, the original falling coin game, at luckybit. It's the most exciting Bitcoin game on the web. You can bet on 5 different payout lines and win up to 999 times your bet. You can even use their faucet to get some free Bitcoin. Dice is boring. Play different at LuckyBit. Check it out at luckybit. All right, Tim, I'm going to turn it over to you for the next point in this in the price article, post-halving pressures. I mean, this is an interesting one because the halving already happened, but I guess some people think there's more to it. What's going on here, Tim?
I'm not going to say what I think. The post-halving pressures, they're saying that not all of the repercussions of the halving are here. Or have, like, manifest, I'm using all these stupid big words. Shit hasn't happened yet, I guess, is the quick way to put that. And, like, they say the Bitcoin price didn't really change too much this July whenever it happened.
Right.
But
which is true.
Mr. Vinny Lingham, who is a investor and entrepreneur, he's saying, like, if the miners aren't turning out as much, it's going to make Bitcoin possibly go up because of just the lack of as much Bitcoin coming out.
Right.
He wrote specifically, it's the same as selling crops in the futures market and then being hit by a storm that wipes out half your fields. The only way technically that this doesn't happen is if the price doubles on halving day. And in parentheses, it won't.
All right, Tim. I was probably going to read this quote too, because I wanted to ask pretty much just straight up, no frills. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with his example.
So you agree that
quote.
The price should go way up because half the fields are wiped out? Eventually. It'll take time. It won't happen on halving day, but you think the price should go way up. Is that what you're saying?
You'd think so, yeah. Yeah, I think it should. Well, I don't know that I like I feel like the example works, but some of it I'm like, this doesn't makes sense, though, technically.
The reason I was asking, and maybe you sense this, which is why you're like, oh, it doesn't make sense, because you must be about to say that it doesn't make sense. Yeah. And I never disagree with you, so something's wrong with this.
Fuck you, yes.
Yes, I think the biggest problem there is that the halvening was not a storm that wiped out half our fields. It was... Everyone knew the storm was coming since 5 years ago, right? 7 years ago or something. It's totally expected. And we've talked about this before. Every time we talk about the halving and the price, So I actually don't even want to get into it too much because we've said this before. But if you haven't heard, I knew 5 years ago when the halvening was going to happen. Okay, I wasn't in Bitcoin at the time, but if I was, I would have known within probably a few months when the halvening was going to happen. And I knew that it was going to happen. And you know what? I could tell you when every single halving is going to happen all the way until the year 2140. No one ever, the weatherman can't tell you if there's going to be a storm tomorrow. Like he can't tell you if there was a storm yesterday. Half the time he's still wrong. All right. But I can tell you there's going to be halvenings every however long for the next 150 years. So that's my gripe. And like I said, I don't want to get into too much more, but does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I agree with that. That it's not something we can. It'd be like a famine that you heard about like a year ago or something.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the price, it just means that lower supply. The hard cap of 21 million, same thing we've been saying, means that the price should go up. Yes, but the fact that everyone knew about the halvening means that any price change has been happening since 2009. And it's going to continue slowly changing the price for the next 100 years or whatever. So I would not expect you to get filthy rich off of that overnight. I think it's a long-term thing that everyone knows about and that slowly affects things over time as people just start to take action or buy Bitcoin because it's harder to get. That's it. So, all right. Are we ready for the next one, the last one? You good, Tim? It's all yours.
Yes. Oh, really? Financial in quotation marks, and that's inside of quotation mark, or not, inside of parentheses. I'm sorry. I've been out of school for a little bit. Instability. Their point in this section of the article, heading, whatever, is that
I'm pretty sure section is the right word there.
I felt like it needed something more, but anyway, financial instability is talking about how Bitcoin, if it goes up, down, depending on what the fuck happens everywhere else, because there's been some weird stuff going on, but I guess there always is,
right.
But, I've even kind of thought in my head, because I recently just started, finally, I forget if it's weekly, it might be every 2 weeks, I buy a certain amount of Bitcoin, and part of that is, I'm like, if anything, right now with the elections in the United States, and then everywhere else, at least according to the United States news, is killing themselves and leaving unions and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Bitcoin, or a currency that isn't tied to any certain country, is going to look at least a little bit better to people, like gold and silver, and they tend to do that in times where people are like, oh no, Hillary's going to take our guns, and
yeah.
Trump is going to take our gold.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So people start hoarding stuff like that, which I think is also, like, Bitcoin is the new, like, people always call it digital gold. So you do that. If you see a bank run, then you're like, oh no, all of my money is on my phone, which is now worthless because people are eating themselves outside.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I completely agree with this. Now, another thing that we've talked about quite a bit is how, the destruction of the dollar, or, the collapse of the United States, or whatever, the collapse of the EU. We've talked before how people have been talking about apocalypse forever. They say all the time, oh, the dollar's going to hell, buy gold, buy gold. They talk about it all the time, and it never happens per se. It never happens overnight, and your gold doesn't double overnight. But all these events, Brexit, Cyprus, Greece, if these elections, when shootings happen and they want to take your guns, all of these events really do contribute over time to more valuable gold, to more valuable guns, to more valuable Bitcoin. And I'm not going to talk catastrophe. I'm not going to be a prepper. There are some pretty insane preppers out there who are idiots as far as I'm concerned. But I do agree long term that fiat currency is risky, and over time it probably will go to zero. The dollar pretty much already is at zero compared to 100 years ago. I don't know the exact number, but it's going to be like worth less than 10% of what it was worth 100 years ago. I believe all that happens and is happening. And Bitcoin, stuff's going to happen that makes Bitcoin more valuable. That's one of the first bubbles that happened in Bitcoin was because of Cyprus and the bank runs there, or the cash restrictions or whatever. So I'm not apocalyptic, but I think this stuff is real and it does make Bitcoin more valuable. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, it makes it more valuable to me because I'm like, I don't know what all these fucks are going to do. So I'm going to keep it.
Yeah, in a way, it doesn't even matter if you're as worried about the dollar and the U.S. disappearing. Even if I'm not worried about it, other people are. So they buy gold and they buy Bitcoin. So I'm still going to because I think it'll make the price go up. Because there are people that freak out about this stuff. I don't freak out as much, but as far as I'm concerned, it makes Bitcoin and gold more valuable. And I have plenty of use for Bitcoin regardless of if the price goes up. So yeah, I'm certainly not selling it, and I certainly will buy it whenever I can, because why not? I'm not worried about the price going down at the very least. So, oh man, all right. I feel like I ranted a little bit there, but I think I made sense. Did I?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much understood it, which is better than I can say for normal.
All right, sweet. Well, I guess that wraps up the last heading here. And I maybe I should have mentioned this at the beginning, Tim, to give you time to think about it. But my next question probably should be, do you think there's anything else? Do you think that other stuff is going to happen in Bitcoin or in the world or on Mars, I don't know, or on asteroids, whatever? Is anything else going to happen to be Bitcoin's next big price event, upward or downward? What do you think it could be, or what do you think it's likely to be? Anything else that wasn't mentioned here?
I mean, if there's less people after, because Trump is obviously Hitler, so Trump's going to kill about 60 million people. So if there's less people, I don't know, that might drive the Bitcoin price down, because then, well, unless the people die and then people are like going through their stuff and they're finding like a bunch of stuff on their hard drives, then people might get interested again. But it might mess with the price. I'm not sure though. If Bitcoin doesn't play well with Hillary though, Hillary might just kill Bitcoin, so then it would definitely go down.
Yeah.
It would just end up dead someplace, and they'd be like, yeah, Hillary was killed in an accident, and he was on his way to testify against Hillary, but it was an accident.
I don't know. I actually think I listened to an episode of Anarchast the other day. It was a month or two old, but they were talking about assassination markets and how those could work in Bitcoin. So I think that more likely Bitcoin would kill Hillary as opposed to Hillary killing Bitcoin.
Maybe, and then maybe Bitcoin would get like real popular. Everybody would be like, thank God. Then it would go way up. But seriously, anything besides what they mentioned, I guess just not in general a economic crisis, but just specifically if inflation goes nuts.
Yeah.
It'll go up in any
that's
countries.
True. Interest rates are a huge factor. I don't really follow the debates or the elections at all, but I want to say that Trump argues for higher interest rates. He probably also argues for lower interest rates. Who frickin' knows? But
you cover all your bases.
Yeah. But interest rates, they're a big deal these days. Okay? My son is trying to save up money, but there's interest rates, okay? What we
China.
have to do is take care of these interest rates and make sure they go in the right direction for America, okay? And let me tell you what, I am here to make sure that we take care of these interest rates. Yeah. Anyway, regardless, that interest rates are a big factor because if they're raised, then we can't pay our debt because the interest on our own debt is going to be awful. And even if they're lowered, then that just means more money is flowing out everywhere, which means prices have to go up. So anyway, yeah, I think you're right. The elections are a big deal, regardless of who wins. They're going to want to make a stand, and they're going to be taking big moves in any direction. They're just going to be trying to make big stuff happen. And because they're the government, they're certainly going to be the wrong moves. And I think that'll help out Bitcoin. I think you're right there. Is that at least in line with what you were saying? I might have been just, I don't know.
You were making a complete mockery of my point. But
Oh, perfect. I succeeded then. All right, good. All right, cool. Let's do advice of the week then. My advice, I guess my favorite point from today, or at least something that I kept coming back to and that I think is important. So I'm going to roll that into my advice. And that is just remember that Bitcoin is scarce. There, maybe, yeah, with elections in China and big government and data centers or whatever, maybe they could manipulate and maybe they could increase that cap. I don't know, but I think it's unlikely. And I think that's, since the very beginning of Bitcoin, before scaling, before SegWit, before Lightning Network, before anything, the first good thing that anyone hears about it is that there's 21 million ever. And I would say to remember that, that's a huge benefit. And it does make Bitcoin more valuable over time. And that's my takeaway, is that's important. And remember that. And hopefully your Bitcoin gets more valuable because of it. So that's me. All right, Tim, what you got?
Stay the course and buy Bitcoin or don't. Buy alt currencies or don't. Put your money wherever you want things to be changed, I guess. Or put your money where you support the things you like with money. Whether that means paying for a service, paying for whatever, or if it just means donating to whoever's doing the work in your favor. Because if you don't do that, complaining on Reddit is not going to change things. You have to put money towards stuff. So I guess
true.
Yeah, I don't complain about things. If you want to change it, I guess pay for it, which I still won't do, but you guys should.
Well, I'm not going to complain about that advice because it gives me the opportunity to say that you can give money to us. We do have a Bitcoin address at me&btc.com. It's at the end of every episode or at the bottom of the page. And yeah, we do accept tips. We get them from time to time, and we will not complain about them at all. We do also have a Patreon campaign. It's me&btc.com/feed us. Because we need food. We have to survive somehow, and we need money to get food. So me&btc.com/feed us. And there are perks there for the Patreon campaign. You can get Twitter shout-outs or a bumper sticker or whatever. So that's another way you can support us if you like. And we actually have a goal set up. If we get $50 per episode on Patreon, then we're going to start doing an uncut after party for every show. And it's only for Patreon supporters. So if you can help us, it's going to take us a while to get to that goal. It's kind of a small project for us, and we don't get a ton of support there, but we would love it if you can help us out there, and you can get the perks and the benefits and the patron only ad-free uncut after party for every episode if you help us reach our goal. So make sure you check that out. If you don't want to give money, we still will take tweets. retweets, follows, subscribes. You, me, and BTC on Twitter, on Facebook, anywhere. Send me, even if you just want to send me an email, shoot me some ideas. If you want to advertise with us, Daniel@youmeandbtc.com. We would appreciate every bit of support that you can give. And like I said at the beginning, we could never do this without our audience. So thanks for being here. All of the music that you should be listening to right now was from Jon Stewart. He couldn't make it today, but his heart lives on in the music. So thanks, Jon, for that. And we will catch you all next Thursday. Peace.
Bye-bye.